On Christmas, our daughter was in a car accident, but my husband ignored everything, instead setting off fireworks and singing Christmas carols with his mistress, completely forgetting about her. It wasn't until the moment our daughter died that he finally answered the phone. Whether you or she dies, it makes no difference to me. I knelt in the hospital hallway in despair, while he was in the building across from the hospital, giving his mistress a grand and spectacular fireworks display as a declaration. After the 15th dose of epinephrine was administered, Robert Miller finally answered the phone. "Sarah, why are you calling me so many times? Are you trying to kill me?" Lily was born on Christmas Eve. From her 4th to her 6th birthday, her birthday wish had always been to celebrate her birthday and blow out birthday candles with her dad, Robert Miller. But Robert Miller hated me, and he hated her too. I sent him a photo. Lily was covered in tubes, clinging to her last breath. On the other end of the line, Robert Miller still thought I was lying. He was too busy talking to his mistress. "Tiffany, doesn't this bow look nice? I bought it just for you. You think a mere bow can buy me off? I'm not that cheap." Tiffany Sue's seductive voice purred close to Robert Miller. My heart ached. I forced myself to say, "Robert Miller, please, I'm begging you, come to the hospital. Lily is really in trouble." But Robert Miller's tone was only impatient. "Sarah, I've told you 10,000 times. Whether you or she dies, it makes no difference to me. Tiffany is sick, so you two pretend to be sick too. Do you mother and daughter have no shame? We're not faking it. She was in a car accident." I repeated, my voice tearing. But Robert Miller didn't give me a chance to plead further and just hung up. Despair spread through my heart. I knelt in the hallway, letting out desperate sobs. Lily's eyes, quickly losing their light, met my bloodshot ones through the resuscitation room glass for a moment. She instantly understood my look. "Mom, isn't Dad coming after all?" Her heart, sustained only by epinephrine, fluctuated because of this. I could only lie, "Lily, just hold on a little longer. Dad just got off the plane, he's rushing here." But Lily's pale lips curved slightly upward, and after speaking a few words, her whole body fell completely silent. "Lily! Lily, wake up!" 20 doses of epinephrine couldn't save Lily's last heartbeat. The extreme pain made me let out a heart-wrenching scream. I grabbed Lily's hand, as if grasping the last bit of attachment in this world. Yet, my will quickly drained away the moment Lily's heart rate flattened. "Someone, quickly! The patient's family member has fainted." Robert Miller and I had been married for many years, but on the night our child died, the building across from the hospital started setting off fireworks like crazy. "Tiffany, Merry Christmas. Tiffany, these fireworks are just for you tonight. Miss Tiffany Sue, will you marry me and become Mrs. Miller?" The dazzling custom fireworks were Robert Miller's grand and spectacular declaration. Onlookers witnessing this gasped in amazement. Even the nurse busy trying to revive me couldn't help but sigh. If everyone could love to this extent before getting married, then this little girl wouldn't have had to die without seeing her dad one last time. The nurse's sigh was full of heartache. But she didn't know. The way Robert Miller loved Tiffany Sue now was the way he had loved me originally. After witnessing Lily's death, I, in the late stages of cancer, completely lost the will to live. I saw doctors and nurses frantically putting me on a stretcher. But my soul, in extreme agony, had already left my body. Since being diagnosed with cancer, I hadn't been able to spend much quality time with Lily. Robert Miller didn't love me, and I was seriously ill. I wanted to earn more money for Lily so her future would be secure. But I never imagined that Lily, on the day we planned to celebrate her birthday together, would be repeatedly run over by a car in our own neighborhood. That night, I stayed by Lily's side, my heart full of bitterness. The next morning, the doctor announced the results of the attempt to save my physical body. The patient is now in a state of brain death. There is no possibility of recovery. Contact the family immediately. She and her daughter both need family care now. Hearing this, the nurses nodded, took my phone from my pocket, and called Robert Miller. "Hello, are you the patient's husband? This is Metropolitan General Hospital. Mrs. Sue was diagnosed with brain death this morning. Little Lily Miller also passed away last night after resuscitation failed. The family needs to come claim the body. When would be convenient for you? On the other end of the phone, Robert Miller heard the nurse's words and immediately sneered. Sarah, are you never going to stop? The car accident lie didn't fool me, so now you're going to die with her. And if I actually fell for it, would you invent someone else to die too? Robert Miller's voice was full of mockery. I gave a bitter laugh and looked apologetically at the nurse, feeling sorry that she was being dragged into this because of me. The nurse, looking at the hung-up phone without hesitation, swore loudly. What kind of person is that? So cold, does he even deserve a wife? Oh, he doesn't have one now. His wife and daughter are already dead. The nurse felt sad for Lily and me, but I just floated in the air, shaking my head slightly. Robert Miller had already proposed to his mistress. Even if I didn't die, he would soon have a new wife and new children. He wouldn't grieve for us. With no one caring, I was ready to become restless spirits along with Lily. But I didn't expect Robert Miller to bring Tiffany Sue to the hospital that same afternoon. Tiffany, Sarah might be dirty, but she didn't infect me. Look, here's my Medica L report. You can feel safe marrying me, I'll be good to you. To put Tiffany Sue's mind at ease, Robert Miller voluntarily got tests for infectious diseases. With the report in hand, Tiffany Sue was blushing shyly. Robert Miller, you touched such a dirty woman like Sarah for me. Even if you're dirty, I'll still marry you. You really didn't need to do that. Remembering the times he was with me, Robert Miller frowned and reached out to put his arm around Tiffany Sue's shoulder. Tiffany Sue had suffered from leukemia and needed cord blood for treatment. For her, Robert Miller deliberately touched me, making me pregnant with Lily. During that time, we were in a cold war. I thought his returning intimacy with me was a sign of reconciliation, but only now did I realize that to Robert Miller, I was just a tool to produce the medicine to save Tiffany Sue. And my Lily was nothing more than a byproduct of that medicine. My heart twisted with unbearable pain. I didn't want to look at Robert Miller anymore. But before leaving with Tiffany Sue, Robert Miller reached out and stopped a passing nurse. Do you have a patient here named Sarah Miller? Or Lily Miller? Never mind, why am I even asking? What she said was clearly a lie. Robert Miller stopped mid-sentence, his eyes full of mockery. Hearing this, the nurse suddenly grabbed Robert Miller by the collar. You're that scumbag who abandoned his wife and daughter? Come here! The nurse, pulling Robert Miller by the collar, dragged him to the morgue. Lily had been dead for over 16 hours. Her face, once velvet soft, now showed clear purplish postmortem lividity. Her small hand, which used to playfully tug at Robert Miller's sleeve, now hung unnaturally at her side due to rigor mortis. The doctor had sewn up Lily's ruptured abdomen, but the strange odor of the corpse still permeated from her damaged organs. Robert Miller, dragged by the nurse, was brought before Lily's body. He immediately pulled out a handkerchief and covered his nose. Sarah really went all out this time, she even put on makeup that looks so real for you. Robert Miller glanced at Lily casually, then raised his arm and slapped her across the face. Instead of learning good things, you're doing these crooked schemes with your mom. Lily Miller, get up. Robert Miller spoke sharply. The nurse beside him saw this and quickly grabbed his hand, reminding him, Sir, respect the dead. But Robert Miller didn't believe it at all. Dead? That mother and daughter are incredibly greedy, how could they possibly be willing to die? They hired you, didn't they? How much did they pay you? I'll give you double. Take me to see her now. Robert Miller said, then slapped Lily's body twice more. I tried desperately to stop him, but my soul was repeatedly scattered by Robert Miller's blows. Lily was already so pathetic, I didn't want her to be despised and beaten by her father even after death. But no matter how I screamed, Robert Miller continued as he pleased. Still not getting up? Lily on the morgue gurney didn't react. After hitting her a few times, Robert Miller finally calmed down. A living person has warmth, but a corpse is at or below ambient temperature. This cannot be faked. Feeling the coldness in his hand, Robert Miller stepped back. Just when I thought he had finally realized Lily was really gone, Robert Miller suddenly smirked and kicked over the morgue gurney. "All right, so you were using a dummy to trick me," Robert Miller said, then stormed off, not looking at Lily again. As I watched Lily lying on the floor, looking pathetic, I instinctively wanted to hold her in my arms. But my soul suddenly felt a pull, tearing me away from Lily's side. "Robert, is Lily all right?" At the hospital entrance, Tiffany Sue asked Robert Miller with a face full of tension. Robert Miller was furious and hadn't even spoken yet when Tiffany Sue, feeling guilty, instinctively took a step back. "Robert, what's with that look?" Sarah didn't say bad things about me again, did she? Tiffany Sue was Robert Miller's mistress. She was also the mastermind behind the complete deterioration of our relationship. Back then, Tiffany Sue and Robert Miller broke up abruptly, and she went abroad by herself. After that, Robert Miller and I met by chance and developed feelings for each other. And the day after Robert Miller confessed his feelings to me, Tiffany Sue came back from abroad. I booked a room near the exam site to rest before my test. She said I had just had an abortion and couldn't stay in the dorm. I worked at a coffee shop to earn living expenses. She said I was pretending to be pitiful just to catch a sugar daddy. No matter what I did, Tiffany Sue would spread rumors about it. Because of her, my reputation at university was ruined. Even when I walked with Robert Miller, passers-by would viciously call me names like the third woman, saying I had stolen Tiffany's man from the university. I was emotionally exhausted because of this. I found Tiffany Sue and asked her why she was targeting me. But Tiffany Sue told me a secret. She said she left Robert Miller because she didn't want him to see her pathetic state after getting sick. She asked me to take care of Robert Miller and not tell him her secret. I agreed. But after Robert Miller and I got married, Tiffany Sue's condition worsened. On our wedding night, as Robert Miller eagerly kissed my lips, she burst in, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, I regret it. Give Robert Miller back to me. Give him back to me." She told me to keep her secret, but then she took off her wig and showed Robert Miller how miserable she looked from the treatment. Robert Miller was shocked. He frowned and asked me, "You knew about this all along?" I nodded silently, but he immediately slapped me. "You knew all along. Why didn't you tell me?" "Sarah, when did you become so scheming?" "On our wedding night." My groom left with his mistress, but I couldn't cry or make a scene because she had told me her secret, and I hadn't told my husband. I didn't know where I had gone wrong. But after that, my relationship with Robert Miller continued to deteriorate, all thanks to Tiffany Sue. Yet she had the nerve to ask Robert Miller if I had said bad things about her. "Sarah is just a crazy woman. I don't believe a word she says. We have the medical report. Next step, let's go look at wedding dresses." Robert Miller had just seen Lily's body and was already eager to move on to the next marriage. At that moment, my eyes were red-rimmed. I felt it wasn't worth it for Lily, and I felt sad for myself. On the way to the wedding dress shop, they passed a new trendy cake shop at an intersection. Tiffany Sue saw it, pouted, and whined, "Robert, I want to eat this. Buy it for me." There were dozens of people lined up outside the cake shop, the winding queue like a small snake. I thought Robert Miller would refuse. After all, he hated wasting time the most. But Robert Miller just dotingly flicked Tiffany Sue's nose, then pushed open the car door and got out. Watching Robert Miller's retreating back, I suddenly remembered a day when Lily went to preschool. That day, Robert Miller, after getting drunk, tormented me terribly. He made me so sick I had a high fever. The next day, I was weak all over and begged him to take Lily to school. But Robert Miller just glanced at me and scoffed. "Sarah, I can make tens of millions in profit by having a half-hour meeting. You want me to spend half an hour taking Lily Miller? Are you worthy? Is she worthy?" I didn't give up, emphasizing with red eyes, "Robert Miller, Lily is your daughter." But Robert Miller's eyes turned colder in an instant. "But Sarah, you're not my woman alone." We parted on bad terms that day, simply because Robert Miller wasn't willing to spend half an hour for Lily. But now, in the city around Christmas time, after the sunset, gusts of cold wind felt like knives cutting into flesh. "Robert Miller, how ever, stood at the end of the line without changing his expression, queuing for a whole hour just because Tiffany Sue casually said she wanted to eat it. Robert Miller had patience and time. It was just that he had never bestowed it upon Lily and me. After a long while, Robert Miller got back in the car with the cake, presenting it to Tiffany Sue like a treasure. But Tiffany Sue didn't touch it, and threw the cake directly into the trash can. Robert, I can't go look at wedding dresses with you anymore. The doctor just told me my leukemia has relapsed, and I might die soon. I can't marry you anymore, Tiffany Sue said, leaning weakly into Robert Miller's arms. A flicker of pain crossed Robert Miller's eyes, and he quickly smiled and held Tiffany Sue tightly in his arms. Tiffany, don't be afraid. I saved you once, I can save you again. You rest well, I'll figure something out. Robert Miller took Tiffany Sue home. After thoughtfully tucking her in, he went to the balcony and called my phone. My body was in a coma, my soul was floating. Naturally, no one answered the phone. Robert Miller dialed several times repeatedly. In his dark eyes, there was only bone-chilling coldness left. Sarah, saving Tiffany is your last use. Don't you dare be ungrateful. Hearing this, I, floating beside Robert Miller, immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Back then, when Tiffany Sue was sick and needed cord blood treatment, Robert Miller deliberately sabotaged the contraceptives to get me pregnant. For Tiffany Sue to be successfully saved, Robert Miller disregarded my wishes and fed me countless supplements during my pregnancy. As a result, by the 7th month of pregnancy, my belly was already as huge as if I were full term. I was immobile every day, my hands and feet swollen. Doctors also said the baby was too large and it would be best to deliver by C-section promptly. But Robert Miller, for the sake of healthy cord blood, forced me to endure until the 42nd week. In that time, I was barely recognizable, my belly stretched and cracked with stretch marks like a rotting ball, without a shred of human dignity. And Robert Miller actually wanted to repeat something like that to me again. After understanding Robert Miller's intention, intense shame and a sense of betrayal made me tremble uncontrollably. But at the same time, I felt a wave of relief. Luckily, I was dying. Otherwise, falling into Robert Miller's hands and being retaliated against would surely feel worse than death. Robert Miller couldn't get through to my phone after trying for a long time, so he decided to go out and look for me. But at my doorstep, he saw a young, gentle woman. Hello, are you Lily Miller's parent? I'm Lily's preschool teacher. She wasn't at school today, is she sick? Preschool teacher? Robert Miller's hand, which was about to knock hard on the door, paused. His fingers, hanging by his side, suddenly clenched. Lily Miller wasn't at school today? Are you sure? The preschool teacher's tone was serious. Absolutely. And her mom's phone is also unreachable. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come here. Robert Miller saw the teacher's work ID, and his brows furrowed slightly. Finally, a ripple of emotion stirred within him. But before he could question again, thinking the teacher was an actress I'd hired, his phone rang again. Are you the family of Lily Miller? This is the crematory. We've already processed her body. When can you come pick up the remains? Robert Miller's already tense nerves snapped the moment he heard the word crematory. He practically roared into the phone, Lily Miller isn't dead. Her mom would never let her die. Stop trying to play tricks on me. And even if she is dead, I don't care. I've said it 100 times, if she wants to die, let her die. Stop bothering me. But before Robert Miller finished yelling, the staff member, who was used to dealing with crises, simply sent him a photo. In the photo, a small urn labeled W. If Lily's name was placed in the center, and behind it were countless bodies waiting for cremation. Robert Miller's pupils contracted as he looked at the photo. If he hadn't grabbed the doorframe in time, he would have collapsed to his knees. Meanwhile, the crematory staff member was still urging him. What are you going to do with your child's ashes? We're busy here at the crematory, we don't have time for your nonsense. Robert Miller was dumbfounded, unable to utter a single word. Seeing his reaction, the crematory staff member directly sent him the address. Robert Miller stared at the address for a long moment, then dialed my number again. Sarah, What exactly are you doing? Lily could die. Don't you and Davidson love her the most? How could you possibly let her die? But after a few rings, when it finally connected, it was indeed the nurse's voice. Sarah Miller's family, given everything that's happened, do you still not believe it? The patient, Sarah Miller, was diagnosed with brain death last night. She only has a heartbeat and breathing, no consciousness. The patient Lily Miller was kicked over by you, her body couldn't be kept any longer and had to be cremated. We don't know what issues you have with Mrs. Sue here at the hospital, but I can tell you with certainty, no one jokes about death. They are really gone. After the nurse finished yelling, Robert Miller, highly agitated, punched the wall. His knuckles instantly broke open and bled, staining the wall. He looked at his broken fingers as if he felt nothing, and said into the phone, "I don't believe you. Let Sarah answer the phone. Make her answer the phone and talk to me herself. She's done so many things to wrong me, how can she lose consciousness before I even get to punish her?" Robert Miller's voice was extremely hoarse. He was clearly shouting into the phone, yet it sounded as if he was talking to himself. The nurse couldn't communicate with him and angrily hung up the phone. But the preschool teacher, panicking, reached out to help Robert Miller up. "Sir, who are you to Lily? Which crematory is she at now? Lily was my student. If something happened to her, as her teacher, I need to go see." But before the teacher could even touch Robert Miller got into his car without looking back. "Liars! You're all liars hired by Sarah. I don't believe a single word you say." Robert Miller's eyes were startlingly red. After running 7 or 8 red lights, on the way to the crematory, he saw Lily's former preschool. As if by a strange impulse, Robert Miller got out of the car. Seeing him, Lily's former substitute teacher's eyes lit up. "Are you Mr. Miller?" "Robert Miller, you know me?" "Of course. Lily always held your photo and called out Dad. It's not just me, the preschool teachers in the next class know you too. But you never came even once, we always thought Lily was making it up." Hearing the preschool teacher's words, a trace of guilt appeared in Robert Miller's eyes. The teacher, seemingly unaware, pulled Robert Miller over to the photo wall. "Mr. Miller, look, these are photos of the children celebrating birthdays at the preschool. Every child has their mom and dad with them. Only Lily, in her 3 years here, only had her mom by her side, even on her birthday it was just her mom. Mr. Miller, we understand that your career is doing very well and you don't have time to spend with your child. But Christmas has passed, and you've come now. What does this mean? Lily was born on Christmas." But when Robert Miller and Tiffany Sue were sitting in front of the Christmas tree drinking wine last night, neither of them thought of her at all. How could he forget such a special birthday? Hearing the reproach in the teacher's tone, the always arrogant Robert Miller bent his back repeatedly. But he wasn't angry. Instead, a flicker of hope arose within him. "So, Lily isn't dead at all. You're just putting on a show to make me feel guilty, right? Putting on a show?" Hearing Robert Miller's words, the preschool teacher frowned. She took Lily's diary from the bookshelf and handed it to Robert Miller. "Mr. Miller, adults might put on shows, but children don't. This is a plant observation diary the preschool asked the children to write. But this diary of Lily's is almost entirely filled with your name. I don't know what you mean by what you're saying now. But do you know how Lily described you? She said her dad hated her and always called her a little wretch. But she still loved you." As the teacher's words fell, Robert Miller's face instantly turned deathly pale. The thin diary handed to him suddenly felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. "I planted seeds in the dirt with the teacher. The seeds are the same color as Dad's eyes. Dad yelled at Mom and me this morning. He said Mom was shameless, and I was a little wretch. I didn't understand what little wretch meant, so I asked the teacher. The teacher said Dad was just angry when he said that, and he wouldn't say it anymore. The seeds didn't sprout. The teacher lied too. Dad called me a little wretch again today because when Tiffany came to our house, I poured her water, but Tiffany said I spilled it on her skirt. Tiffany's skirt was very pretty. I'd never seen one like it. I wouldn't have wanted to make it dirty. Dad accused me unfairly." Robert Miller's hand trembled as he flipped through the diary. The more he read, the more he trembled. By the time he reached the end, tears fell silently. It feels like my seeds died along with my heart. Because Dad said he would never spend my birthday with me, even if he died. Dad seems to hate me, but I don't hate Dad. Mom said Dad misunderstood her, that's why he's always angry. Lily would be willing to die herself so Dad wouldn't misunderstand Mom. But if Lily dies, will Mom's heart also die like the seeds? No, it can't be like this. Robert Miller's eyes trembled. He clutched tea. He diaried to his chest, held his breath, and drove straight to the crematory. He told himself the crematory was just the last stop I'd planned for him. But after the car stopped, Robert Miller immediately saw a familiar figure standing beside Lily's small urn. David Chin? Robert Miller walked up to David Chin, just about to speak, when an enraged David Chin punched Robert Miller in the face. Robert Miller, are you even human? Your daughter has been dead for 24 hours, and only now you show up. You don't deserve Sarah's love at all, and you're even less worthy of being Lily's dad. Robert Miller's mouth was bleeding from David Chin's punch, but he disregarded everything and started fighting him back. David Chin, what are you pretending about? If you hadn't seduced Sarah into cheating, we wouldn't have ended up like this? Robert Miller roared this out, and David Chin's expression froze instantly. He looked at Robert Miller in disbelief, and after a long moment, squeezed out a cold laugh. Robert Miller, you don't mean you still don't know that Sarah never betrayed you? The reason we were in bed together back then was because we were set up. Over the years, Sarah must have explained it to you. Did you never believe her even once? After David Chin finished speaking, Robert Miller was trembling uncontrollably, but he still stared stubbornly at David Chin. You say you and Sarah didn't cheat. Then why are you here now? Wasn't it her who seduced you? Hearing this, a look of heartache flashed across David Chin's face. He said seriously, I admit I used to like Sarah. But she rejected me a long time ago. The reason I'm here now is because the special watch I gave Lily hasn't detected her heartbeat since last night. Robert Miller, do you know what that means? David Chin roared. Robert Miller, this is what I saw when I opened the watch camera after I realized Lily couldn't hold on. Take a good look yourself. In the dim evening, Lily's small body lay on the cold road, her breathing weak. David Chin sensed something was wrong and video called her. But no matter how David Chin agonizingly asked about Lily's condition, she kept weakly calling out, Dad. Dad, save Lily. Dad, Lily misses you so much. And as Lily was calling out for him, that luxury car ran over Lily's body again. Lily was really gone. The bloody truth was laid bare before him. Robert Miller's tears fell again. Lily! Lily, that was really your body. Robert Miller remembered the slaps he'd given Lily's body. Filled with unbearable remorse, he raised his hand and punched himself. But no matter how much he hit himself, Lily was already dead. The harm he had inflicted upon her truly couldn't be undone. Robert Miller, you were not a good husband, and you're even less of a good dad. You don't deserve to take Lily's urn. David Chin said, preparing to leave with Lily's urn. Robert Miller, desperate, trembled and knelt directly in front of him. Don't touch her, that's my daughter, don't touch her. David Chin was another one of my suitors from university. Back then, he and Robert Miller expressed their feelings for me at the same time. I chose Robert Miller. David Chin then went abroad and didn't return for many years. It wasn't until the eve of Robert Miller's birthday that Robert Miller proactively sent me a message telling me to find him at a hotel. Following the arrangement, I found the room, thinking the person waiting for me was Robert Miller. But as soon as I entered, I was knocked out by a strange smell and thrown onto the bed. When I woke up, I was lying naked in David Chin's arms. Robert Miller poured a basin of cold water on me. He was trembling all over with rage. Sarah, you've really outdone yourself. I was just busy for a few days outside, and this is how you get back at me, isn't it? Sarah, it's my birthday today. I tried to explain, but my text messages had been deleted. The hallway surveillance camera was mysteriously broken. Even my clothes were covered in David Chin's fingerprints. All the evidence pointed to David Chin and me cheating. Not to mention Robert Miller had abandoned me on our wedding night. I actually had reason to retaliate against him. With no evidence, I could only repeatedly explain and beg Robert Miller to believe me. But Robert Miller didn't believe me at all and even deliberately set me up to get pregnant. While being intimate with me, his face was always full of disgust. "Sarah, you're just a slut." Robert Miller said this countless times. Even Lily, the child he had deliberately planned for, was hated by him as well. Now, Lily was dead. David Chin repeated the truth again. Robert Miller's eyes narrowed. His heart, like solid ice, finally stirred. "Sarah, Sarah." He clutched Lily's urn and rushed back towards Metropolitan General Hospital. When he saw me lying flat on the hospital bed, without any expression, he could no longer hold back and cried out in anguish. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry." The nurse said brain death was irreversible, but Robert Miller refused to believe it. "Mr. Davis, contact the top experts in the country. I've already lost Lily, I can't lose my wife as well." "Yes, Mr. Miller." For 5 consecutive days, Robert Miller stayed by my bedside in the hospital room, neglecting himself. Lily's urn was placed on a table and surrounded by all the snacks Lily loved when she was alive. Robert Miller didn't go home. He constantly talked about our past stories by my bed, trying to wake me up. But Robert Miller's actions had long since made me completely lose hope in him. Let alone the fact that my body had already been ravaged by cancer. Even if I were healthy, I wouldn't want Robert Miller anymore. As night fell, Robert Miller looked at my expressionless face. He reached out a fingertip, trying to draw a smile on my face. But before he could touch me, Tiffany Sue's irritated voice came from the doorway. What I said back then was, if Lily Miller died, Sarah Miller would be heartbroken, and then Robert Miller could coax her into having another baby, and my illness would be saved. But can any of you tell me why Sarah Miller ended up brain dead? I paid you to do a job, and this is how you messed it up. Tiffany Sue's tone was venomous, full of resentment. Her assistant was being yelled at pointedly by her, not daring to resist in the slightest. Inside, Robert Miller, who heard this conversation, suddenly his face darkened dramatically. What did you say? You killed Lily. Robert Miller suddenly yanked the door open and fiercely grabbed Tiffany Sue by the neck, demanding, Tiffany Sue, how dare you harm my daughter? You wicked woman, what exactly did you do to them? Lily was dead. Only then was Robert Miller willing to call her his daughter. I was brain dead, beyond saving. Only then did Robert Miller finally believe my explanation. But this misunderstanding had lasted for 7 years. Robert Miller wanted to fix things. But I was truly tired. Under Robert Miller's interrogation, Tiffany Sue admitted she hired someone to murder Lily. She also confessed that the setup where David Chen and I were framed for cheating back then was orchestrated by her. She confessed her crimes without denial. Her face was turning purple and blue from Robert Miller's grip, but she kept expressing her love. Robert, I did bad things, but it was because I love you. Now you've lost everything, you only have me. Surely you can't bear to give up on me too? Robert Miller's face was like stone. He slapped her, knocking out 2 of her teeth. Tiffany Sue, remember this. From today on, the suffering Lily endured before she died, I will repay you 1,000-fold. Robert Miller kept his word. He immediately stopped all cooperation with the Sue family. Tiffany Sue went from being a rich young lady to a debtor overnight. Her leukemia, which could have been treated, became something no hospital would take on Robert Miller's instruction. Tiffany Sue was driven mad with rage by this. But Robert Miller descended into madness before she did. Countless experts at home and abroad said my body was beyond saving. But Robert Miller stubbornly refused to give up, wandering the city day after day with my body and Lily's urn. Sarah, do you remember this place? This is where we first met. Robert Miller brought me back to our university, hoping a familiar place would stimulate me to wake up. But looking at this campus where I met, got to know, and fell in love with Robert Miller, I felt nothing but pain. If I could, I would never want to meet Robert Miller again. Being suspected by him was exhausting. Being a medicine for Tiffany Sue was even more painful. I didn't want to relive a single day of that kind of life. As for Lily, Dad didn't love Mom, so she didn't have a good life. If I could do it over, I wish she could grow up in a home where both her parents loved her. Robert Miller took me through the university campus. And his last stop was the city hall where we got married back then. Sarah, you promised to spend a lifetime with me. Don't break your promise, okay? I'm begging you. Robert Miller put a veil on me. He then took the wedding ring, which had been sitting unused in a dusty storage box, and forcefully put it on my ring finger. Looking at that ring, my whole body trembled. A sense of humiliation instantly flooded me. Back then, when Lily was just born, my C-section wound hadn't healed yet. Robert Miller rushed to the hospital room and condescendingly forced me to hand over my ring. Sarah, and you still say you have nothing to do with David Chin? If you really had nothing to do with him, how could the paternity test between me and that little wretch turn out like this? Robert Miller threw the paternity test report proving he wasn't Lily's father in my face. Then he turned and threatened me, Sarah, if you still want to be Mrs. Miller, get rid of this little wreck. Immediately. Send her to an orphanage or a remote location. As long as she's gone, I'm willing to give you another chance. Otherwise, you'll never see me again in your life.